We all know SpongeBob, right? The yellow sponge who's always laughing, smiling, annoying his neighbor, and all just being around goofy character with a starfish by the name of Patrick, who is his best friend. Well, now that I have the introduction all settled, I'd like to let you all that I have, or rather had, a very rare copy of the SpongeBob episode that was written by none other than Steven Hillenburg, the creator of the show. I was roaming around Nickelodeon Studios in June of 2008, and let me tell you, that tickets to get in were not so easy to get. Anyway, I ran into Mr. Hillenburg in one of the main areas of the studio. No, literally, I ran into him. See, I kind of snuck into a high security area, and while I ended up alerting the guards, and you get the geist, after bumping into him, and I apologized. Mr. Hillenburg looked as if he was in a daze. I waved my hand in front of him, but he continued onward past me. This was making me feeling a little uneasy. Once he walked away, I spotted something on the ground where I had bumped into Hillenburg. It was a videotape. It didn't have anything discernible title or even anything remotely close to what the video was about. No sticker, nothing on the inside of the film projector, nothing. I just picked it up and ran it out very quickly out of the lot. After about a week after my initial journey playing back to Chicago, I remembered that I still had the tape. Seeing as I had a VHS to DVD burner that I got for Christmas last year, I decided to get a blank DVD-R disc and put it into the DVD side of the burner and the video inside the VHS aside. After about 30 minutes or so, it popped into the disc in the video, and I think it was they were supposed to do when a disc is done burning. Anyway, I popped the disc into my computer, autoplay popped up, and of course, I had modified my computer to do so. I decided to look in the folder for it, and there was a video file that went by the name of Pearl.AVI. Pearl? Then I double-clicked the video movie file as Windows Media Player Center popped up. Are you ready, kids? Aye, aye, Captain. It was a SpongeBob episode. I thought to myself, oh, I haven't seen this show in so long. SpongeBob was one of my favorite shows as a 10-year-old, and hearing the nasally laughter of the sponge would make anybody's ears absolutely sing with joy. Well, metaphorically, of course. So, as the title of the episode came up, I noticed something odd. There was no title in the episode. It just skipped to the episode. It showed 3 things I knew I'd seen of SpongeBob. 3 main houses, the pineapple, the Easter egg island head, and the rock with the antenna on it. I smiled with nostalgia as I heard SpongeBob's laughter echoing throughout the computer speakers. SpongeBob was watching a TV show on his little driver helmet TV, and after about 5 seconds after the scene translated to SpongeBob's house in Pearl, Mr. Krabs' daughter bursts out through SpongeBob's door, breaking the door as she does so. She then is seen sobbing hysterically in a comedic manner, in the mini waterfalls coming out of her eyes. SpongeBob then begins to walk over to Pearl and ask, "What's wrong?" Pearl replies, "Oh, SpongeBob, it's terrible. Daddy won't talk to me. He hasn't said a single word to me all day. He just sits in his bedroom looking down at the floor, sighing." SpongeBob then replies back to her in a bit of a heroic way. "Mr. Krabs? That seems weird. Don't worry, Pearl. I'll go talk to him. I'm not..." "You will, SpongeBob?" Pearl replies, looking a bit of happiness on her face. SpongeBob then nods as Pearl is seen hugging SpongeBob and saying, "Thanks, SpongeBob. You're the coolest." The screen then transitions to the bubbles coming up to SpongeBob, nearing the glant anchor that Mr. Krabs and Pearl live, and saying, "Cool, huh? Cha-cha." And you hear that jazz trumpeted chorus plays the chord as SpongeBob has been seen doing a comedically cool stance and look. He then knocks on Mr. Krabs' door. Then we see Mr. Krabs quickly drag and pull SpongeBob into his home. "SpongeBobby boy, I'm glad you're here. I have to tell you something." "What is it, Mr. Krabs?" SpongeBob asks. "It's about Pearl. You see, she's..." SpongeBob was confused by Mr. Krabs' stammering asks, "She's what, Mr. Krabs?" A grim look upon Mr. Krabs' face. "She's adopted me, boy." SpongeBob gasps, "Adopted?" A claw grabs SpongeBob's lips as they've been seen dramatically to stretch forwards. "Shh! She might be out there. Listen now, me boyo. I want you to tell her that she's adopted." I can't do that." Tears began to swell up in Mr. Krabs' eyes. "I just can't." SpongeBob looks shocked at this. But Mr. Krabs, I can't do that. It would break her fragile heart." "SpongeBob, that's in order," Mr. Krabs said with sadness and frustration in his voice. "Yes, sir," SpongeBob said while he saluted and began to run out panting. At this point, I was starting to get a bit uneasy. This wasn't SpongeBob SquarePants I knew back in the day. This was something else. Something more adult. Now, even though I liked more adult stuff, this episode just made me really uneasy. Telling someone they're adopted isn't easy talk, trust me. Horrid results is when you told you by the means of someone whose parents told you to tell that person. The last time I had to do that, I had to coax someone out of taking their own life. Anyways, back to the episode. The screen then transitions back to SpongeBob's house, where Pearl is seen sniffling as SpongeBob pops his head into the busted doorway. Pearl looks up and immediately is overjoyed to see SpongeBob. "SpongeBob," she called out with excited tone, "did you find out why Daddy won't talk to me?" SpongeBob says timidly that he clears his throat. Yes, I did." Pearl says in a concerned tone of voice, "What's wrong, SpongeBob?" Then we hear SpongeBob's thoughts. What should I do? Should I tell her? Or should I lie to Mr. Krabs? No, lying wouldn't do a thing. Mr. Krabs would probably dock my pay to half a penny a day if I did that. This made me do a small chuckle, as I knew Mr. Krabs is a cheapskate. My chuckle fell silent as I heard SpongeBob outright say it. "Pearl, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're adopted." Pearl's eyes went wide as both SpongeBob and I cringed. I then heard a laugh coming from the computer speakers. It was Pearl's laugh. "Ha ha, that's a good one, SpongeBob. But really, why won't Daddy talk to me?" "Pearl, it's the truth. Mr. Krabs had me come over here to tell you." "What? No, you're lying." Pearl then slaps SpongeBob very mystically and then storms out of the room. We then see Pearl walking up to the front door with tears in her eyes as furious as she pushes the door open forcibly. She sees her father holding back tears. "Daddy, please tell me that it's not true. Please tell me SpongeBob is lying." Mr. Krabs begins to tear up. In a shaky voice, he tells Pearl, "Yes, 'tis true. When you were a baby and I was out scrounging around with a metal detector near the outskirts of Bikini Bottom, looking for fair loose change, I stumbled upon you and your mother, or what was left of her after the sea scallops got to her." Then this scene transitions to a flashback sequence, to which this day still makes me cringe. It showed Pearl's mother's eyes gouged out with one hanging, her tongue somewhat chewed off. Her fins were only bone, her ribcage and skin ripped off, revealing decaying muscle, and her throat had a hole in it, which showing the larynx, windpipe, and esophagus. I turned away at this point while listening. I found your mother laying there, morbidly decayed, and when I heard crying coming from nearby, the crying was you. It looked like you had just come out of your mother. I scooped you up and took you home and cleaned you up. I kept you around for around good 16 years. I felt better to tell you now when you're old enough to understand. I started to get crying at the this point. This became too adult, but too real for the happy little show I have used to know and love. I wanted to click on the X at the top right corner, but I couldn't just turn away. Pearl then ran out crying. Not the comedic tears either. Those looked realistic, almost human. "SpongeBob, me boy, go after her. Those tiny legs won't catch up to you, boyo." SpongeBob nodded and began to run after Pearl, calling her name. Pearl began to run faster, and SpongeBob began struggling to keep up with her. Pearl then stopped at the top of the high coral cliff, turned around, and then told SpongeBob, "Stop!" She put a fin out. "Do you know what it's like to not know your mother? To be with some creepy, gracious Cerulean all your life while thinking he's your dad, even though you look completely different? I mean, how can a crab have a sperm whale for a child?" Pearl's eyes then was starting to get very shaky. She was sobbing uncontrollably. I don't think you to be lied to all your life. Do not know your true family. I don't want to be lied to anymore. Pearl then began to proceed to fall backwards into the seemingly endless chasm. SpongeBob yelled, "Wait, Pearl!" and then ran off the cliff to slope where he had just ran after Pearl. He ran as fast as he could so he can get down to the bottom before he heard a loud, disgusting crack. I even cringed at the sound. It sounded like a bone snapping in two. As SpongeBob approaches Pearl, she is seen with the face of her head, her violently pushed to the side. Her neck had snapped right in two. Her eyes were gray-blue now. They were about soulless as any person who has succumbed to their death. SpongeBob walked up to her silently, his shoes no longer making that funny squeaking sound. He dropped to his knees and realistically next to her corpse and began to sob humanely and uncontrollably. He then tugged on the corpse and looked up to the sky and said, "Why, Neptune? She was so young, why?" This caused me to sob right along with SpongeBob. The episode then cuts to black and was finished. I couldn't believe it. Why would Hillenburg make such a demented, depressing episode? I went to bed after this, and the next day after coming home from work, I planned to extract the episode onto my hard drive and put it onto YouTube in about 2 parts. It was 15 minutes, of course, so when I got home, I saw everything was a mess. Papers everywhere, my TV was gone, my computer was a company tower, mouse and any USBs that had it were gone, and my VHS to DVD burner was gone. Oh shit, I've been robbed. Where is the video? Where is it? I said as I began to look for the video that contained the episode. I couldn't find it. That was the only VHS I had in my possession. I guess the robbers figured with worth money. I kind of figured that too as well. So I suffice to say, I am unable to provide a video of the source. I apologize and I hope you'll heed my warning of picking up any strange tape in with the infamous studio after bumping into a famous cartoon writer. I didn't think anyone would be seeing this as SMouse.AVI was up on my YouTube channel once again. But of course, let this story be a warning to pick up strange tapes. You never know what you're going to end up watching.